So initially I wanted this video just to be about the differences I found while playing the Snowgrave route, but while editing about 30 plus hours of raw footage, I actually noticed what I think is a direct connection to the Undertale story. But before we get into that, so this isn't going to be every single Snowgrave difference in the game. There might be little things here and there. This is just stuff I caught. You may have seen it, you may not have seen it. I don't know. Obviously, there's nobody playing here on the stage when we're actually trying to kill everyone, then save everyone. So during this scene right here, we have a Pippus pop out because during the Snowgrave route, you can't fight Spamton. And we are able to get that instead. I don't know if this plays a part later in the story. And then later in chapter 3, you cannot go and get the egg, which you would do at this area because there's no spotlight. Interesting that you can't get the egg in chapter 2 and chapter 3. Early on in chapter 4, Noelle and Kris high five. However, if you're doing Snowgrave, Kris just ignored you. And Susie says, maybe things took a weird route. Kind of a direct reference to the weird route, which I think it's going to be officially called. And here, I don't know if it's an actual Snowgrave thing, but I have not been nice to Onion. So Susie throws a rock in the lake, and she says, we'll see how far you get at the lake next time, which I don't understand the grammar there, but maybe that's just Susie. And then once we get to Noelle, usually Birdly calls here, but we know Birdly has been frozen. So instead of Birdly calling, we have Noelle's mom calling. Obviously, the mom is concerned about Noelle. Noelle says she'll see her later tonight. And Susie wants Kris to get out of here so that she can have some alone time with Noelle. So where is Birdly? Well, he is in the hospital and he's still breathing. He's still alive. He seems like he might be cold. And it seems like he just might be in a coma. Something is definitely wrong with him. And Susie thinks that it might just be a bird flu. Later on, after attacking everyone, including the ancestors, if we go back to this area, the ancestor is missing, and they're upset that their great ancestor has disappeared, and whoever committed this crime should suffer, and they want us to be gone. There's also a bell deep inside the church that tells us whether we have been nice to everyone so far. But if you're doing the Snowgrave killing everyone route, then it tells you the bell rung hollow. Now from here, if you really backtrack and go into Castletown, you can see it's blocked off. They don't want you to see anybody. We have a few of the townspeople dancing around with Lancer, but we have no more recruits. We head inside the TV. Nobody's there to man the desk, and everything is closed off in Castletown. I am wondering, though, there are a few recruits from Chapter 1 and one from Chapter 3. Is it possible to get 0 recruits? I have no idea. And the last little thing I noticed, it might not be anything from Snowgrave, but when you're back at the lake, Susie mentions about trying not to howl. I don't know if that's a reference to being like a werewolf, dual personality, two different people. Maybe you guys know more than that than I do, but let's get into the big stuff now. So if you go to the vending machine and you enter 1225, it opens up the machine so you can head inside and you get sent to the strange world. And the music that plays here is the song, I believe, called Death. So I'm assuming whatever is found here is directly related to death. But if you keep on walking around long enough, there is no actual barrier. Eventually, you'll stumble across another little gumball machine. You used the machine. The capsule came out. Inside was something hard like liqueur. It was a small, dark triangle. You tried to take it, but it slipped through your hand, and you couldn't find it anymore. You couldn't find your hand. Very, very strange. What does it mean? I don't know. However, after fighting the knight and beating them with the shadow mantle, a black shard is dropped from the sword. And the shard does look like a small, dark triangle. And it is also something that we hold in our hand. I don't really know the relation between these scenes, if they're actually related or if it's just a complete coincidence, but let's move on. So when you're in Noelle's house, this scene will only happen if you are on the Snowgrave route. Kris, are you up there? Noelle will want to speak to you privately in her room. However, we no longer have control over Kris. If you don't mind, I'll be in my room, okay? However, if we sneak on over to Noelle's room, we can see their private conversation. And there's several different things that can happen in here. There's something I wanted to talk to you about, Kris. I want to talk to you about last night. Last night when we did the Snowgrave route. Last night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, all I could see was snow. I was terrified, Kris. Terrified it was all real. I went out on the porch to breathe, and that's when I felt it. A hand on my wrist. I froze, and then I heard your voice. Kris's voice. You said sorry for taking your watch, Noelle. You said it was all a stupid prank. You said Birdley is going to get better. And you put the watch back on my wrist. You said sorry for being weird at the hospital, Noelle. You said it was all a stupid prank. You said Birdley was going to get better. Kris, your voice, your deadpan, mumbly voice. Even if you sounded kind of weak and shaky, I don't know why, but it felt so long since I heard it. I even started sniffling. Kris, you're back. Kris, thank you. Well, no thanks for pranking me, but... Kris, can I say something else? And then we get an option here. Proceed. Please don't. Obviously, if we want to continue Snowgrave, we will proceed. And here we are. As the heart in the room. Kris, there was something else you did. Now here we can actually take possession of Kris, but if we don't do that, something else kind of happens. Something else I have to ask you about. After you said all of that, you took my hand and pulled a thorn out of my finger. Then you said that when I saw you again... Kris, what are you... And then Kris grabs Noelle and runs out of there because Kris knows we are there in the area. And Kris is trying to protect Noelle from us. And we do hear a chime there. I think maybe that means we have averted from the Snowgrave route. Not entirely sure. However, you can take possession of Kris and it gives you different options. So Kris shuts Noelle up. Kris doesn't want us, the player, to hear what she's going to say next. You just said not to mention any of that because it get heard. Kris, it's okay. It's just us. Who's gonna hear if you press ... which I accidentally did? Haha, Kris, you fooled me. This had to be your worst prank yet. Never do something like that again. And then we hear the chime. So we're no longer on the Snowgrave route, I'm assuming. However, if you choose me, Snowgrave continues. Kris, your voice. Kris, that's another joke, right? That voice. How? The voice from my dream. Because it wasn't a dream. Sorry, Kris. What did you say? I must have misheard you. There's no way they heard. There's no way they heard my thoughts. Because Kris here isn't hearing Noelle's thoughts. It's us, the player, us responding. That's why Noelle thinks it's a different voice. Because it's actually the player's voice in a way and not Kris's actual voice. If you can hear me, say red or blue. Red for blood. There's no other choice here. Say green or black. Black like the void. Say it didn't happen. Say it didn't snow. It snowed. You're lying. You're lying. Noelle will get stronger. Kris, what did you say? Equip. Kris, what is that? Proceed. Kris, that's not the thorn, is it? That's not the thorn ring, is it? Proceed. Kris, come on. You still? What about last night? What about... Didn't you want to protect me? Proceed. Why can't I move? Why can't I look away? Noelle, do something. Equip Kris. I really think, I just need to. Gosh, I think I have to. Equip. Kris? And then here we get a red dot. I think there's a significance to this red dot because it does show up later, so keep that in mind. Obviously, Kris is now not happy with our decision. Us forcing him to turn Noelle into a monster, a real monster. He does not want us to be in control of him anymore. Kris, are you okay in there? Just thought I'd let you know Mayor Carol is asking everyone to leave. And, thought you looked a little down today, so I made a special treat for you. Your friend and I will be waiting for you outside. Feel better, Kris. I think Kris's body is just giving out. I think without us, Kris almost can't function on his own. Can't even speak. Kris, if you aren't feeling your best, perhaps you should just go straight home and rest. Here, I borrowed some sweets and made you some hot chocolate. It's your favorite, marshmallows. And a little pinch of cinnamon spice. See you around, Kris. We'll see you around, Asgore. Guess we can go. So just shortly after, Susie mentions that Noelle looked kind of weird, and why couldn't they talk in front of her? And it gives you the option to say literally nothing. The rain stops. It is our choice. Fine, I won't bring it up again. So later on in chapter 4, Rousey suggests we close our eyes and imagine what Susie might be doing behind the door. It seems unnecessary. It might be nice if she had this chance to, perhaps if you just close them for a moment. Don't. We want to not do what Rousey wants us to do. Maybe we could think of someone else and think of Noelle. Triggers a scene. We see the red dot again. And we hear Noelle's voice. Thank you. Kris, hey Kris, you okay? You were just standing there with your eyes closed. And then you just started breathing hard and... Here, get up. Very strange that Noelle is thanking us for thinking about her. But anyways, if we go to the end of the game, we do have a different ending if you are playing the Snowgrave route. Obviously, Sans befriending your mother is still happening. But if we go to the night of being completely bothered by Sans, we receive a phone call. Now, I wasn't able to identify whose voice this is because it seems like it's a new sound. If you know the sound that matches the dialogue, let us know. Kris, are you there? Then I'll just leave a message. You're going to the festival tomorrow, aren't you? I just want to confirm. Noelle said she's really looking forward to seeing you. And then we see the red dot again. So that ending is actually pretty different from the original chapter 4 ending, where Kris goes to the window, looks out to Susie, and tries to jump out the window, but still receives a phone call and a voice that says, Kris, don't forget, Kris, you promised. Now, this is a voice we have seen earlier. If you go spy on Kris while in the vents, you can listen to a phone call, Dark Fountain next. Now, I believe there are 2 people on this phone call. The red voice and the white voice. Susie must not get guitar. Need soul. Without soul, Kris will... Susie, guitar, code, stop. Police sacrificed next week. Church tonight. Kris, Dark World Soul can't. So I think the white voice there is the same voice at the end of the game. And if we're not on the Snowgrave route, that voice is concerned about Kris needing to have a soul to get into the dark world in some way. And the red voice, which is often red, the color is paired with determination in Undertale. That voice is more concerned about Susie not getting the code not getting into the shelter. Where will that go? I don't know. But at this point, it's all just... Now, like I said before, I did not initially intend this video to be a theory video or a speculation video, but yeah, going through the raw footage of this game, I did find some stuff that I think directly connects this story to Undertale's story. In Undertale, we know there is a machine that is broken. We don't know what the machine does. It is very mysterious. And right next to the machine, we also find a hand-drawn picture of 3 people we don't kind of recognize, but they are smiling. We do know that in Noelle's room, there are art supplies that maybe perhaps he draws, and I think it's Noelle's drawing of Kris, Susie, and Rouse. I also noticed while playing through chapter 4, if we look at the menu in the overworld, it says Kris since chapter 1. Obviously, Kris is in quotation mark as if this isn't really Kris. It might be Kris, a vessel, as a person, but this is someone else. But more interestingly, since chapter 1. Why since chapter 1? It implies that there was a before chapter 1. Maybe before chapter 1, Kris had an LV of 20 or 15, different HP, different attack, different defense, maybe different armor and weapons. Perhaps this isn't Kris's LV, but rather the players, us, our LV, while playing as him, and maybe he was in control in some other life beforehand. Keep that in mind, I guess. I don't know. Now, further on, when we're in chapter 4, looking for the egg, we find this guy, and he says he heard something in between. And when he tells us this, he tells us a story. Lost would where the children point for his tail to grow. But every time we talk to him, he says the same statement in a different way. So I tried to unscramble this, and the only way this sentence makes sense to me was if it was lost were the children who would follow where the forest grew, comma, the pointed tail. Let's ignore the pointed tail for a second. Lost were the children who would follow where the forest grew. We know that in the story of Undertale, children running up a mountain, through a forest, into a cave are forever lost. Lost were the children where the forest grew. I don't know if it's referencing these children, but let's look at the pointed tail. Here, I believe the pointed tail are the children. It's the only thing it could be referring to in this sentence. And I don't know why this word tail just stuck out to me so much while playing this game, because it appeared twice. At another point in chapter 4, we see part of the prophecy. They'll hear the ring of heaven's call. Usually when you hear the ring of heaven's call, I feel like you're about to die, or you're dead, or something along those lines. The same guy that tells you about the lost children then says the poor children, as if something bad happened to that. But right after we see the ring of heaven's call, we see they'll see the tail of hell take crawl. Tail again. The children that hear heaven's call will see the tail of hell take crawl. It's such a purposeful statement. These children become the pointed tail, the tail of hell, or at least that's maybe. I don't know. I'm just throwing stuff out there. Back in chapter 3, if we talk to this random dude near the end of the chapter, he says there once was a great wilderness here, a forest perhaps, but the world became the theater and us, children of Tana's contract. Those who did not sign the paper set off for the far land and were forgotten. Maybe the monsters getting trapped underground. Now only the legend old hermit still knows the way to the place. The river person Gerson, I don't know. Kris, do you not know him so much? And that is all this guy says. I don't know if this is completely unrelated or if it is related. I just thought it was very interesting what was being said here. Now I know you're thinking that's a very loose connection to Undertale. However, there's more. So near the end of chapter 4, you can walk off this path and you find a little hidden area. And in this area, we see part of the prophecy with Asgore the flower man trapped in asylum. Now we assume this is our normal Deltarune flower guy. However, the Asgore in this prophecy has a crown. And Asgore in Deltarune never has a crown. He was never in a position to have a crown. Only Undertale's Asgore has a crown. So I believe this prophecy is not actually about Deltarune, but rather is about Undertale. Obviously, he's looking at a flower. The lone flower, if we refer to entry number 8 in the True Lab, in the center of his garden, there's something special. The first golden flower that grew before all the others. A flower from the outside world. Is this the flower exactly in the prophecy with Asgore looking over it in his flower garden? We see in the same room, the angel banished will finally meet with its desire. And Susie is confused by the way it looks. Rouse says that's my understanding on how they're supposed to look. Susie, I don't know about that. That looks very weird. Angels look like that. But if you think about biblically accurate angels, they're not necessarily human shape. They can look very weird with lots of eyes, wings, a lot of stuff going on with these angels. So if we look at what it actually says, the angel banished will finally meet with its desire. It's a weird way to phrase that. The angel banished, destroyed, sent away. The angel we think of to be something good typically, but why would we want to send it away? Will finally meet with its desire, what the angel wants. What does the angel want? Well, if this is referring to Undertale, we know the prophecy from Gerson in Undertale is about an angel who has seen the surface and will descend to free the monsters, or perhaps kill the monsters to free them from the mortal realm. And when we finish Undertale, we see the angels, things that don't necessarily look like the angels, many different eyes, just weird abominations almost, or different interpretation of an angel with wings. And obviously, when they are defeated, they get what they truly desire. So in the same area, we can find this person, and they talk about there's only experience, the other side of your mind. Did you miss something there? The other side of your mind? If you say no, they say it's absolutely true, that I'm an unbeliever. But if you say yes, you missed something on the other side of my mind, liar, liar. Your hands are shining. You took and made. Tickets and cards drawn and grayed. A trace repeated is so clear. I don't know what any of that means. But it's interesting that the question is the other side of your mind. So if we're thinking that this prophecy is actually about Undertale, and it's being kind of interpreted by our characters in this world to be about Deltarune, at the very end of the Dark World, we see a prophecy, the last one that we could see. It says, to save the worlds, there is only one way. We assume this is the light and the dark world, but what if it is this entire Deltarune world and the entire Undertale world? But I don't think that is the only connection to Undertale. Let's talk about this knight, who some of us think it's Des. I think that's the majority opinion right now. We do have a prophecy about the knight which makes the blackened knife, shall duel the heroes strife by strife. We think we've already done that. We fought Des, but let's take a closer look at this actual prophecy. So if we look at this, we can see 5 fingers. Typically is a human related trait. What also does this prophecy say? The knight which makes the blackened knife. It doesn't say blackened sword, and we know in our fight with the knight they use a sword. So where else is there a blackened knife? I believe it's the real knife. It looks like a blackened knife that glows red with determination. I believe the red is a glow. Obviously we see the glow in the background of the actual picture. I believe the knight is a human that created the real knife. That means a human shall duel the heroes strife by strife. Now we do see right after this, the first hero, the cage with a human soul and parts. And Susie says, oh, this has got to be you. And I don't think this is being actually true. I think this is meant to throw us off. We are not the cage with human soul and parts. Now, if we go back to the hands thing, we can see there are 4 digits instead of 5. I think the first hero is a monster, a vessel with human soul and parts. This is when there were experiments in the True Lab to try to inject monsters with human soul, human determination. So who is this first hero? I believe the hero is the Roaring Knight. There's this single frame which gives us a closer picture of the Roaring Knight. And if we look at its hands, we can see clearly 4 digits, 4 fingers. Weirdly enough, on its chest, 1. Why does it say 1? The first hero, the first experiment. I believe there are many knights. In a kingdom, there are many knights. There's 1 king, 1 queen, but there are many knights in a kingdom. And the Roaring Knight is so specific of a name versus just the knight. If we refer to entry number 17, the one from Gaster, dark, darker, yet darker. The darkness keeps growing, the shadows cutting deeper, photons reading negative. This next experiment seems very, very interesting. We know in the beginning of chapter 3, we're told a story by Ralsei that the dark world is an imaginary world that is created beyond darkness. You go to darkness and there's nothing there. You go beyond and something begins to form. Photons reading negative. We can see this as there are no photons, or photons are now negative. They're there negatively. Whatever that would mean about experimenting with darkness. If this darkness is exactly what Ralsei is talking about, getting darker than darker, creating something from nothing, I believe the world, the overworld of Deltarune, is a world created by Gaster. Where this is all said, entry number 17 is created right after entry number 16. No. The scientists have realized their experiments have not worked, so they need to try something else. I believe that something else is creating a new world for the monsters to live in beyond the darkness. They can't break the barrier. They're stuck in the underground. The only way to live a happy life is to create a world that seemed normal. A world beyond time and space. They say he shattered across time and space. Gaster's no longer in Undertale. Is Gaster in the darkness that he created that lives beyond time and space? A term that is used in both Undertale and in Deltarune. Fulfill the ancient prophecy foretold by time and space. So in the end, I'm starting to believe that Deltarune is a world created by Gaster, where Gaster is putting monsters that have existed in the underground, possibly a lot of monsters that have already died. Susie, who is referenced in the Nintendo Switch Undertale, but never seen, possibly is dead. Noelle and Des, who are referenced in the Xbox version of Undertale, but never seen in the game. They're also possibly dead. Asriel, as Ralsei, we know, is dead. Kara, the only human that appears in Deltarune, has lived with the monsters, is possibly dead. And of course, if we're talking about space and time, we know this world exists in the past, present, and future of the real world. I can't help but think about the show Lost. In the final episode, we see all the characters meeting up in a church as if they're all dead. And this is an afterlife purgatory. Now, they all died at separate times, but the time that they died doesn't matter because they all meet at the same spot beyond space and time. I believe that is something that might be happening here in Deltarune, that all these characters possibly have died and now have been put into this dark world, or some characters have died and some characters like Toriel and Asgore have put their consciousness into Deltarune so that the characters that have died can have a family while in this world. Honestly, I've only been thinking about this theory for like 30 minutes. But it just became so clear as to what's happening. And I think Kris, Susie, and Noelle breaking into the dark world is going deeper into darkness. So deep into darkness, they're starting to go almost full circle and seeing into the real world. And seeing into the real world is this prophecy, the one with Asgore with the crown and the angels and whatever else the prophecy says. Feel free to expand upon this. Feel free to give your opinions, and if you don't like this theory, feel free to be mad. I don't know. But anyway, let's get on to... I found a few things, and I'm not talking about the Easter eggs. We know how to get the eggs. There's very convoluted ways. Here in the Tenna fight, there is this screen that is flashed. We can see Spamton. We can see a lot of things. For some reason, there's also the word brother. I don't remember seeing this word anywhere. It's very strange why this is there. There's also a number 6. What does it mean? The 6 other souls? I don't know. If you travel back to where you hug the wall, you can find this monster which gives you TP, but you're outside of battle, so it does nothing. I don't know. Also never figured out what the spite switch does. Kind of weird. Also, if you get rank T, which is above rank S, so you get access to the T rank room where the Tenna is T posing. Strange. There also is a Z room, which leads to a closet, which leads to the manhole, which leads to the game. So S rank, T rank, and Z rank can give you access to the Snowgrave route. If you travel back to this boss, you can tell a story. And yeah, he doesn't like it. There is a piano you can play. If you play Megalovania, Toby Fox takes you out. You could play the Death Song, which Susie comments that's kind of nice. Wonder if I can learn that on guitar. Obviously, it's played on guitar. There are also 2 other songs that you can play. But I'm very bad at it. So if you recognize these songs, please let me know. But these songs are the longest songs in the game. Amazing. You played the whole thing, which I have no idea what I just played, but okay. I don't know. That sounded kind of off. Is there a key switcher or something you gotta use? And the other one. I truly think it's the way I'm playing it that is the reason why I can't recognize it. Huh? Why'd you play it so different? So different? Are you like nervous or something? I thought they were both really nice renditions. Does he? Is that a song? Is that different or same than something else? I don't know. And the final Easter egg I found is during the rules fight. If you wait long enough, Annoying Dog will pop up. And I'll just let the rest of it play out.
Challenger.